The master of comedy takes on the master of suspense. Danger, intrigue, romance, and a hint of kinkiness. High anxiety. Welcome back to Entertainment Rebooted. Specifically, welcome back to yet another episode of Cinema Revisited Mel Brooks, where we are watching the majority of the filmography of legendary comedic director Mel Brooks. I am joined, of course, by my esteemed co-host, DJ. Say hi, DJ.
Hello.
DJ, tonight's film was none other than 1977's High Anxiety, starring none other than an unknown person to this channel, Mel Brooks. And
Never heard of him.
Yeah. Of course not. Unknown. Anyway, Cinema Revisited, 9:20 at night. Let's do this quickly. We're going to talk about the plot, the good, the bad, the ugly, the iconic, and what would a equivalent to modern times look like. That's kind of how we've started to shift for this specific series. The plot, DJ, please.
Okay, so the basic plot is Mel Brooks is someone who suffers from high anxiety. He has a major fear of heights and gets incredibly anxious in situations, especially around other people. And he is hired as a esteemed, I guess a person in his field of psychology and psychiatry from Harvard to go run an institution called the was it the Institute of the Very, Very Anxious or
the Very, Very Nervous?
Very, Very Nervous, yes.
Yep.
And he comes to take it over after the death of the previous person who ran it, who has suddenly died, and the action and comedy and everything ensues as he comes to take over in charge of that organization, and hijinks happen. Lots and lots of hijinks. There's some murder and mysterious and intrigue, and there's conspiracies and all kinds of fun stuff, but mostly it is a lot of Alfred Hitchcock, what do you call it, like fanboying.
It definitely does play homage to Alfred Hitchcock. In fact, the beginning of the film, it straight up says dedicated to Alfred Hitchcock.
So, and yeah, it just basically goes along the lines of, I know this movie's been around forever, but I don't actually really want to spoil it too much, even in my review, or in my synopsis. But it's just most of the hijinks is between the characters and the conspiracies going on at the psychiatry center and what goes on there. So it's just a fun film.
You know, we can't go into spoilers with this.
I don't want to.
Well, people who watch this, we review the plot because if people haven't seen this, then they know what we're talking about.
Go watch it. Just pause it right now, watch it, and then come back. Okay, now. I will have warned you. I know this movie's forever old, but it's this isn't one that would hurt from knowing ahead of time. Okay, so the main thing is that the members of the psychiatric ward, the hospital, have a conspiracy to contain people there past the point of them being fixed.
Because they're being paid.
They're being paid a lot of exorbitant amounts of money by very wealthy people. They're literally keeping them hostage there in order to live off of them, and they continually try to get rid of the Mel Brooks' character because the guy who is second in command wanted to take over so that they can have an easier time covering everything up. And that's really where all the hijinks comes from, is all of that. There's a lot of references and things to other films that involve those characters. And it's hard to really specifically, there's so many. But the finale kind of comes as he is framed for murder and they try to come after him. He has to run around as a fugitive, and then he comes back to the hospital in order to prove his innocence and save the father of one of the patient's daughter comes to him in order to get his dad out of there, get her dad out of there. and he goes with her to save his life, and then it just basically just ends very suddenly. Actually, kind of very Universal Monster fashion. It just ramps up really quick and then ends.
Pretty much, like you hit the climax. There's a little bit of resolution. The lovers walk away into the sunset, or in this case, literally honeymoon city.
Yes.
Yeah, that really is kind of a basic plot. It follows a lot of different tropes for like psycho thrillers and those general kind of movies of the time, the 1950s through 1970s.
This is to Alfred Hitchcock and psychological films what Blazing Saddle was to spaghetti westerns.
Pretty much.
It pays homage to it while making fun of it, and it's really good.
Yep. All right, let's get into it. The good, the bad, the ugly, and the iconic. What is the good of 1977's High Anxiety?
The humor. Okay, so we watched Silent Movie, and that, what was the one before that? It was
Young Frankenstein.
Young Frankenstein, yeah. This one is very much back into the Mel Brooksisms. Mm-hmm. There were a few in Silent Movie, but this one, man, it does a good job of his classic humor style of making fun of a subject while praising it, much like Young Frankenstein did. Like it felt like that again.
Yeah.
That's literally the good. It feels like a Mel Brooks film, and it was a good one. And man, does it just do a really good job of that homage and mockery. It's good.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I got for that. It's just solid.
Yeah. Very solid with that. I would say that character designs and little visual gags and things like that going on, I would say that they do those really well. I've mentioned it before. Mel Brooks has a way of using little things to show a lot about different characters. A lot of the
you learn a lot about them in very small amounts of time.
Yeah, and so a lot of the references and some of the humor bits and things like that are found just in like little tiny details. The fact that the nurse is literally this pale, pasty, like she looks evil.
Yeah,
just from looking at her, but also they have like little things where it's like all of her makeup is in her teeth, and they have the different costumes and things that they're all wearing where it's like they set up a gag, but you don't really notice the gag until they're in the middle of it. Like, I'm going to call him Hedley Lamar, but Dr. Montague.
Yeah, Dr. Montague.
Same actor. Dr. Montague, one of the visual gags that they have is he's wearing this like really striped shirt with the bow tie, and he takes his jacket off and breaks up a fight like it's a boxing match, and he looks exactly like a referee. And it's just like a little thing that just works very well.
That was such a clever scene.
Yeah, it's just clever. Like, it's like a little clever visual thing that just ties it together.
All right, boys, we're here to have a fight, not dance around.
Right.
It turns into an actual boxing match.
And then you have the scene where the girl walks up drives up in this like ridiculously like painted car, and then she's wearing the exact same thing. And that's kind of a Hitchcockism, though. He liked having this kind of visual symmetry where they look like...
That was a direct reference to, like, there's a scene in one of his films where they have, like, a blue car, and then she's wearing, like, a blue suit that matches the car.
Yeah.
But then they just, like, took it to its extreme. Which was just...
But it's just one of those things where it's, like, it's this little thing that Hitchcock did. Hitchcock loved symbolism. He loved when he could do the little color coordinations and things like that. Like Psycho, he literally has the main girl, the first girl that shows up. She is wearing white to begin with, and then it changes to black when you realize that she's not actually pure and innocent.
Right.
It's things like that. So it's just like this Hitchcockism, but Mel Brooks takes it and he's like, I see what you did. This is how it looks if we went ridiculous with it.
Exactly.
So it was just things like that. Mel Brooks is always very good about these like little subtle things. Obviously, he's over the top in a lot of ways, but little subtle visual cues are good. How about
bad? For bad, this one suffers actually from the same thing a lot of the earlier ones did. It takes a little too long to get to the point. The best and most like most of the stuff in the film happens in the latter third of the film.
Yeah.
It's not, and now this one does a little better job of doing setup, and there's a lot. This one isn't boring in its sort of parts if you know the reference material.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with this film, and I have an ugly to go with this, so I don't want to get too much into the bad part of this, but the main problem with this film in general is that it relies very heavily on its references.
Yes.
Which is very true of a lot of more modern parody films. A lot of Mel Brooks's films, just like any parody film, doesn't do a good job of parody if you don't know what it's making fun of, or spoofing or satirizing. Because it doesn't always make fun of it. Sometimes it's paying homage to it or playing with it.
Yeah.
The main bad in this film is like the first 2/3 of the film. There's not a lot of plot going on. It's mostly just direct references and scene shots and stylized shots. And I got most of those. There was a few I missed, but I haven't seen everything that they was referencing. But I at least know of most of what it was referencing.
Right.
If you don't know that, oof, it's gonna hurt. Like significantly, even more so than like, I think even Blazing Saddles. Like, you will. I have not seen any of the spaghetti westerns. That movie specifically parodies.
Right.
But I understood a lot of the references, and even then, but I still could enjoy the film.
Yeah. Let's see. For me, what's bad about this? I would say that it might be just, it could kind of tie into the fact that, not knowing all of the references that he's making, but I will say that some of the gags used don't work, but they kind of insist on it. Like I got it, I don't got it. They use that a few too many times. There's a couple of times where the humor just kind of really...
But they beat the dead horse a little too much.
They kind of beat the dead horse a little bit too much, or there's really long gaps where nothing really happens. The intrigue doesn't really go through, but there's not really comedy filler necessarily going on along with it. So I would say bad's just kind of a pacing issue. The majority of the film highlights really don't show up until Victoria.
Yep.
Once Victoria is introduced into the film, this film gets exponentially better.
I feel like it's like every one of his films though, like it's better when she specifically gets into it, because like the plot doesn't move on until the lead female gets in there.
Yeah.
Until she gets in there, like, and it's the same actress that's been in the last like 3 of them. Until the plot doesn't happen until she's there.
Well, no,
Silent movie was like that.
Yeah, exactly. Silent movies like that. But it is a thing where you just kind of feel like the film starts off kind of floundering a bit. And it doesn't really kind of hit its stride and really start feeling like itself until Victoria shows up.
Yeah.
Once she shows up and finishes the ensemble, it all works very well. Otherwise, there's a couple of these like little onesie-twosie laughs. But like I said, there's just these long gaps, and the first 2/3 of the film are very rough as a result. How about ugly?
Okay, so this tied into my bad. The ugly of the film, the thing that hurts it more than anything, is its heavy reliance on the films that it is referencing. Yep. And I don't just mean the context. This is a little different than like Spaceballs is a parody of Star Wars. Blazing Saddles is a parody of Westerns. He gets this movie down to the shot references.
Right.
This isn't just the content of the film. The way he films it, the way he styles it, the way that all of the shots are done, references,
the way that he writes it,
the way it's written, the way
dialogue.
It is straight up built like to specifically parody Alfred Hitchcock films, as well as several others. The main villain that becomes, well, not the main villain, so the henchman is literally a straight parody of Jaws from Moonraker,
which isn't even like that much of a reference back to Hitchcock's filmmaking.
No, it's more of thrillers in general.
Well, so right, and the thing
he starts making later in the film he branches out away from Hitchcock and gets more into thrillers and spy films and different kinds of high tension films in general.
Yeah,
he borrows references from. But man, the one of the scenes that you pointed out, like there's a scene in there where they're filming underneath the table.
Yeah,
and it's a Hitchcock angle. It's a classic Hitchcock angle. But then they put like a platter over it, so they have to move the camera. And they put another platter over it, so they have to move the camera again. Where that's a still shot in a Hitchcock film. That was great. But if you don't know what it's referencing, it's not as funny. Like, it's like, what? Like, it's silly, but it's not like clever.
Yeah.
And that is the whole film is like this. There is a huge chunk about halfway through the film-ish. But I'd say about the middle third of the film is all references and very little plot development. And they're brilliant. But if you don't know what they're referencing, it's just a boring part of the film that you don't understand what's going on. Like, you're just watching it like, what is with these birds? What is with this scene with the dry cleaners? I don't understand any of this. Like, what is this nonsense?
And even like direct dialogue, like go by the north by northwest corner.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Or the most blatant part of the film, which is the Psycho reference, which is
a shot
for shot recreation of that scene, even with the ink running down the drain as the blood runs, and then the face. Like, it was a perfect representation. If you don't now, even people who haven't seen Psycho probably are aware of that. It's iconic. It's iconic.
A lot of people recreate that.
Yeah. So, but it's gonna be tough. That's the ugly of the film. It relies heavy that to me though, and I was gonna flip it to it. That's also my iconic.
Okay.
So
you can roll.
Okay.
You can roll.
That was my iconic as well. The ugly and the iconic are two sides of the same coin. The iconic is it does an amazing job of referencing Hitchcock's work.
Yeah.
And it pays great homage to it and praises it while satirizing it. And sometimes outright makes fun of it. Like the car matching the outfit thing, the birds. Like those were overly funny to be funny, but it's perfect representation of his work. Yeah. And you could tell, I looked it up after we finished watching it, that he actually did consult on the film, which makes sense. I mean, the first person camera angles, the stuff that Hitchcock invented in cinema, he uses to great effect in this film. Yeah. It's lost if you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
All yours, man.
All right. I agree. Entirely. The way that I would describe ugly and iconic, same vein. This is very much a film nerd movie.
Yes.
That's an ugly because it does kind of hurt it if you don't really know a lot of Hitchcock, if you don't really know a lot of like 1960s.
And not just Hitchcock films. Like you have to understand his cinematography and his like how he made movies, like the industry. You have to understand. Yeah. You have to be a big nerd in the background.
Well, you have to know Hitchcockisms, but you also have to know 1960s, 1970s thrillers, and you have to know a little bit about even like books, like there's like little references and things that they do. There's a couple of tropes that kind of fall into it where they talk a little bit of pseudo babble, like pseudo psychology babble and things like that. It's all these little tiny things. So the ugly is like, if you haven't watched a lot of 1960s thrillers or Hitchcock specifically, if you haven't had any exposure to Hitchcock and how he thinks,
and you have had like another like 40 films outside of it,
right? Then a lot of times these little things get lost, and as a result, and I'm sure that this film,
I missed a few of them.
Well, yeah, if I had been exposed to a few more of the films, I probably would have found this film just absolutely delightful as compared to just like the few things that I like really knew a lot about. The iconic, however, is that this isn't really just like a parody. It's a classic thing that Mel Brooks does where it's not just a parody. It's not just, oh, let me ha 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 make fun. This
isn't Airplane. This isn't a direct parody. This is a satirical piece.
Well, it's satirical, but the other thing too is that I'm laughing with you.
Yes.
I appreciate your ingenuity. I appreciate how creative all these things are. I'm willing to emulate what you're doing reverently, but I'm going to put a gag on top of it. So it's not making fun of the fact that like there's a camera in the table. And people aren't making fun of the fact that, oh my gosh, this is absolutely ridiculous. There's a camera in the table. It's a thing where it's just like they use the camera right. They
more like this is a really good shot. Hitchcock is a genius for this. But what if we did this to him?
And it really is one of those things where it's just like, yes, they're intimate. They're talking close. And he's using it right. Hitchcock's point of view when he's doing these things where it's an odd angle, they're up in the table and looking up at everybody, it's because it's an intimate conversation. They're not talking very loudly. Everything's kind of secret.
It's like you're in the whisper. You're in on the whisper.
You're in on it. You're in a place that you're not supposed to be. You're like the child hiding under the table, hoping your parents don't find out you're there as they're talking and whispering. So Mel Brooks
almost makes you feel guilty for knowing this information.
Right, exactly. And Mel Brooks uses this in a appropriate scene. And every time that he uses a Hitchcockism, he uses it in an appropriate scene. So it's one of those things where the iconicness of it is the fact that it's like, this is a film nerd's movie.
Yeah.
And it's fun and delightful if you know what he's referencing, because he's not just doing it to make fun of it. He's doing it right in a fun way.
Yeah.
So that is one of those things. Like, as a result, ugly. There's large gaps. There's a lot of times when you're just kind of like, I just don't.
There were some I missed. There were like, and they do cutaways. Like he does this in all of his films, where they'll have like scene setting, where they'll do like a play style, do a scene, close it out, do a scene, close it out, do a scene, close it out. Yeah. Especially at the beginning of his films, they did that in silent movie. They did it in Young Frankenstein, but a lot of those scenes are movie references that I'm, whoosh. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I got a lot more than I thought I would, honestly. Because just full disclosure, I have never seen this before, and I did not look it up or know anything about what this film was for. Yeah. So that going into this, I was blind, and that had a big effect on how I felt about it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's just one of those things. Like, it is ugly and iconic at the same time. So it's just like, I would warn somebody ahead of time. Hey, you should kind of know
homework. You have homework. That's the ugly of this film. You have to do homework to understand it.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's not like a punishment to do it, but
no.
It is a thing of like, hey, you probably should be at least familiar with Hitchcock.
Specifically, there are 3 or 4 Hitchcock films it directly references, as well as 3 or 4 other high stakes anxiety films, and then there's some other references to Bond and some other stuff in there as well.
Right. So it's just like, you kind of need to know some of these things in order to really appreciate it.
I'm not going to list them all off, but go look it up if you want to see yourself. But you can, there is a list of films you kind of have to at least have a cursory understanding of.
Right. And you can Google it. If you Google high anxiety, like what films are referenced in high anxiety, it goes directly down the line. But the iconic of it is, if you really like movies, you will really enjoy this film.
Yeah.
All right.
And probably the films that it led off from as well.
Right, exactly. All of them are pretty solid. He picked really good ones to pick.
Yep.
Okay. You're approached by 20th Century Fox. They're the ones that made this. And they say that they want to make something kind of like high anxiety. What would you say would be like a modern day equivalent?
Scream.
Okay.
Would be pretty close. Yeah. This is not one that I feel like I have the expertise to tackle, but if I was to do this, like check like something more modern to like pick apart, Alfred Hitchcock does something that people have been copying forever because it's so unique and original.
Yeah,
you'd have to find somebody's style. Stanley Kubrick.
You could do Kubrick.
Kubrick is a pick. If I was going to pick someone he was making films close to the same time as as Hitchcock was still making stuff anyway. But
yeah, that would be.
But if I was to pick somebody that I would want to like make him, it would be him or maybe Shyamalan.
Shyamalan does have a style.
Those two have very distinct styles, and they've also done a lot of invention, and they've given to the entertainment industry in general of filmmaking with stylization and shots and stuff that they do. Those would two that I would probably pick to parody or satirize, and in a very similar way, homage to it.
Yeah.
So I would take a film and maybe even the two of them and just like go ham on some of their stuff. I mean, like just imagine films, you know, like The Shining, 2001: A Space Odyssey, like with, and heck, for funsies, throw some artificial intelligence references in there because that's even more film nerdy because it's meta. Because even though it's not Stanley Kubrick, that was Spielberg playing Kubrick. Yeah. So you put a reference to that in there and you make a joke within a joke, and you make it like something like this. You take it where it's like someone's going on a personal journey. They have something with themselves that's messed up and they're just fighting through this stuff. A lot of films have done some of those films, but I don't think anybody's really done a direct, true parody of, like, you'd kind of have to pick. Well, I'd probably pick The Shining as the framing and then put references to some of those other films in there.
Yeah, if you were going to do Kubrick, you'd have to either frame it off of The Shining or 2001.
And then I just have references to other Kubrick works and to like one of the like you're in the hotel and one of the hotel doors you open is the guy running on the around the thing from 2001: A Space Odyssey, and it's just close like that. Well, like, or that would be perfect.
Or they walk out into the maze and there's a monolith for no reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and then that like, and then you have like you have like some M. Night Shyamalan moments in there too, like just like
where it's just like one little tiny hint, but you kind of be a little bit more obvious than Shyamalan, where it's like, oh, there's a ghost here. Red is in the scene. He does things like that. Like Shyamalan does things where if he has a specific twist, he always has a way of being like, well, if you're paying attention to my movie, I gave away the twist,
which I don't know. Like he's hit or miss for me, but I appreciate his work, and I would love to like homage that. I just won't touch Airbender at all.
I wouldn't.
Oh, actually, you have a good parody scene where like someone from The Last Airbender shows up, and they just get like wrecked out of the film like unceremoniously.
Well, no, what you have to do is you have to get somebody who's like a very famous person or character, and purposely overpronounce their name.
Yes. What about you, John?
Okay, so along the similar vein, so this movie is an homage to specifically Alfred Hitchcock and his cinematography and his kind of style, his movie. I would say that a modern day equivalent would have to be something like, you could go immediately. I thought Christopher Nolan. He's done,
that's a good one.
A lot with cinematography. He specifically does a lot with IMAX.
Christopher Nolan has virtually invented like IMAX cinematography styling.
Yeah, and so
he had to, because he pioneered it.
Right, and he has a very specific kind of style where it's a lot about being grounded, but it's a lot of these like high kind of like thought things going on.
Christopher Nolan would be a fun one to satirize.
But I think that one that would be more leaning into being able to make a parody off of it would be Wes Anderson.
Oh, glory.
Wes Anderson is so heavily stylized that it kind of leans itself into a bit of a parody.
I almost feel bad I didn't think about that. Wes Anderson would be solid. That would be a solid one to parody. He almost is parody of himself.
Well, because he makes comedies. That's what he does. But his style, he is so heavily stylized that he has his own kind of genre film. So if you're going to go and play homage to it and make like fun of it, I think it leans into it enough that you could probably make fun of it, because he has enough.
I could just see like a parody point of the film being like Asteroid City, and they do a shot for shot remake of the alien scene, but it's just a dude dressed in a suit.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a dude with like an alien suit with like antenna on, and he just gets down and he just does the thing and then leaves.
But I mean, it would be a little bit harder to make a parody off of a Wes Anderson. Like I said, he kind of already does kooky comedy, quirky, not kooky, quirky.
Well,
comedy.
no, you just do what he did with Hitchcock. You just copy his stuff. You just in a humorous manner.
Yeah, you make a full story that's just
exactly.
But I would say that as far as like really stylized directors, you could also do Michael Bay. Michael Bay is very heavily stylized.
That would be a good one of like a overproduced action film if you want to make fun. Well, that's kind of what some of these have kind of been done a little bit. Like Scream is kind of a parody of horror while being a horror film.
Well, Scream's kind of one of those things where
it's less of a parody. It's more of a
it's a parody in the sense that Wes Craven is making fun of one of his favorite genres and himself, but he's also playing dividends to like John Carpenter and 80s slashers.
Right. So he's paying homage to one set of genres while kind of mimicking another and making fun of it.
Yeah, it's closer to Blazing Saddles in that it's like the genre as compared to like a specific director.
Right. Yeah. And then then there's the scary movies that are just true parodies that then also parody those. But they're more pure parodies than they are satirical works.
Yeah.
They don't really do the homage. They just straight make fun of.
Yeah, it's about making fun of it. It has its own style. Yeah. It has its own way of filming.
Hot Shots and Hot Shots 2 do like the action genre with parody, but they do more homaging and parody. Airplane pays a bit of homage to the film that it parodies. There are films that have done this over the years. It's become less common more recently. I would really like to see Hollywood. I would love to see Mel Brooks. I can't remember the guy who did Airplane. I can't remember who it was. I'd like to see more of that in Hot Shots. I'd like to see more of those style parodies come back, where it's paying homage to the works while parodying it rather than just trying to make a joke out of it.
It's
the movie series.
It's laughing with people because it's an inside joke. You feel like you're kind of on the end.
The scary movies got a little out of control towards the end there, especially after the Wayans brothers left. Yeah. The superhero movie, the
epic movie,
disaster movie, all of those are just awful because they just try to make fun of it. It's a Saturday Night Live skit into a film. Like, bring those back. I want to see that more.
Yeah, definitely. This is one of those things where it's just like Mel Brooks is iconic in his own right. He has his own isms. He has his own styling. But it is one of those things that it's just very fun to see, like, taking these films seriously and just being like, he's not just having his own isms and stuff like that. He really is like a student of film.
Yes.
And it's interesting to see and take it as he's a film nerd being able to make a film and having fun with it.
I think that's, that for my closing remarks here, I kind of feel like the reason I kind of brought that parody thing up is because watching modern I grew up watching like Mel Brooks and some of these other parody films. Yeah. When I watched more modern ones, they felt soulless, and I couldn't tell at the time why. I mean, I'm young, like a teenager, and I know something's off, but I couldn't quite tell. I think like you just described the difference. Like Mel Brooks understood the source material, and he paid it respect before he made fun of it. I think this is what separates Weird Al from like other parody artists and Mel Brooks and some of these people that do parodies of other things. They appreciate the source material and they're paying homage to it while twisting it into something different. They're not throwing it out the window and just laughing at it. They're using it as they giggle at it a little bit. They're enjoying it and using it and making fun of it all at the same time. Parody just doesn't do that anymore. It literally just picks up the source material and slaps it around and laughs. Oh, right. Look at this stupid thing. And it's like, no,
it's not humor at the source material's expense. I'm not laughing at you. I'm having fun with you.
Yes. And
it's like friends banter, and friends kind of make fun of each other, and you do stupid things where you kind of get an ism of your your friend, and you just kind of play off of it, and it's just like, oh, I'm DJ, I could get away with murder, but I want people to know that I got away with it. It's stuff like that. It's fun.
Yeah,
together.
It's the difference between family, between friendly banter and running up to someone on the street and pantsing them and taking a picture and laughing at them.
Yeah,
it's sophomoric humor versus a higher level of humor. I think even the what are those the vacation movies and stuff even get that to a point. They can be sort of sophomoric, but they still do a homage to what they're paying to.
Yeah,
and that's been lost completely.
Yeah. It's just kind of like a lost art. We've gotten so used to this thing is so stupid, I'm gonna make fun of it because it's stupid. Not a thing of like, this is really fun, it's really good. Let's just have fun with it. Yeah, that's really, I think, kind of like the heart. So far, that's kind of what I'm seeing as kind of the heart of Mel Brooks. What makes Mel Brooks compared to other people. Speaking of other people, please don't go away and see other people. Subscribe to the channel so that you can see more of us nerding out and talking
don't
about
watch
movies
anything else on
stuff.
YouTube. Only us. Only us.
Anyway, if you guys like this video, be sure to drop a like. Let us know your thoughts about high anxiety, Mel Brooks, movies in general in the comments below. We love having a conversation with you guys and talking with you guys about movies. That doesn't happen a lot, and as a result, I have a very sad and boring life. So please leave a comment so that I'm not so lonely in these dark winters.
Oh, glory. Don't let him manipulate you. Do what you want. It's a free country.
Anyway,
well, unless you're watching this in China. Sorry.
They don't let us in China, DJ. They already know. But anyway, we hope that you guys are enjoying this. I think I've kind of hit all the things. Like, comment, subscribe, do the typical thing. See you guys in the next video.
Thanks for watching.